many indigenous peoples really rely on the natural resources, for their own food, for their own livelihoods. So when hurricanes, droughts, floods happen, then this increases the level of poverty amongst them. There is a big amount of money now being put for climate change mitigation and adaptation, and in some instances which I have seen, indigenous peoples are not consulted whenever some projects funded by these funds are put in their communities. For example, renewable energy projects like hydroelectric dams are built in their communities, and their free, prior, and informed consent is not obtained.
The University of Sydney has suspended a professor and government education advisor for sending racist emails. Professor Barry Spur referred to Aboriginal people as human rubbish tips and used racist terms to refer to Muslims and Asians in Australia. The poetry professor said the emails were part of a whimsical game, but students are demanding his dismissal. In a recent review of the curriculum, Professor Spur had advised that schools teach less Aboriginal literature. In them, Professor Spur refers to Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott as an Abo lover, an offensive term for Aborigines, and to Nelson Mandela as a darkie.
For the country. So that was the ultimate statement from General Kelly, the importance. And I just want to thank you, because you're very, very special people. You were here long before any of us were here. Although we have a representative in Congress who they say was here a long time ago. They call her Pocahontas. But you know what? I like you, because you are special. You are special people. You are really incredible people. And from the heart, from the absolute heart, we appreciate what you've done, how you've done it, the bravery that you displayed, and the love that you have for your country. Tom, I would say that's as good as it gets.
Yeah, my name is Mateo Parsons. I'm a senior poli-sci major. I am Apache and Yaqui in descent, and I am the outgoing co-chair, one of the outgoing co-chairs of the Native American Student Union on campus.
Beautiful. So, regarding treaty era type America policies, do you see a difference in the language employed in any of the policies? And if so, is it meaningful? Is it even there?
Yeah, with the Green New Deal, I think that's how these things need to be worded. We need to be respecting Indigenous people not as an assimilated minority in the United States, but as their own sovereign nations. And I think that goes back to those treaty conversations where Congress never annulled most of these treaties. So these treaties, there's plenty of legal debate that could be had about it, but as it currently stands with just how you would generally consider treaties and how Congress regards treaties, there's still good law. And so because there's still good law, it's a matter of negotiating the terms now of what our modern context under those treaties looks like, because those are the law of the land. They were passed by Congress, they were signed by the president, and they were signed by representatives of those sovereign nations. And so when two countries enter into, or two entities enter into a treaty like that, both parties are assumed to be sovereign nations. You can't enter into a treaty if you're not a sovereign nation. So because those treaties are still good law, and because they were entered into by two sovereign nations, it's important that we still consider that in our current context. And so that's why I think what's written in the Green New Deal is important, and I hope that Congress won't try to strike that out, because it's important that we begin to negotiate, like I said, what our current context looks like in light of tribal sovereignty and nationhood for tribal nations.
What do you think are politicians' main reasons for their exclusion of Indigenous peoples? And not even just politicians, but ambassadors in general, whenever things go up to the UN and whatnot.
Yeah. But I think it's just that duality that I just spoke about. It's on one hand, indigenous people in the United States are an assimilated racial minority. And so on that front, we are we're the smallest racial minority in the United States. So as far as demographics go, it's not a population that a lot of people may think of as being their constituents. On the other hand, there are still these outlying legal claims to national sovereignty for all of these tribal nations. And so I think that on that side of the question, it doesn't fit into our national narrative, and it doesn't fit into the structure and the framework of our government for politicians to regard these tribal nations as duly sovereign and to grant them the rights of self-determination. If they do that, then it begins to break down the jurisprudence, so to speak, or the jurisdiction of the United States over the territories that are considered Indian country and over the people that are citizens of those territories.
So it's very much so like in this case, it's like the dominant power, who in this case does happen to be an oppressor. Just like the repeating of lies, kind of like indoctrinated truth over time.
Yeah, definitely. And it serves the interests of the United States to continue to erase and not serve indigenous people. The United States is a settler nation, it's a settler country. And so that means that our entire system is founded on the framework of a concept called settler colonialism. And basically what that means is that a large part of our national policy and our national goals as the United States was expanding and in the present times is the erasure and also blatantly the extermination of indigenous people to remove them from lands and resources that could be used by settlers. And so because that's the case, like I said, it just doesn't fit the interests of the United States to suddenly include the people that they're trying to remove. And that's unfortunate, and it needs to change, but that's how the United States works. Even if you go back 1789 when the Bill of Rights was written, the Second Amendment is drafted, and it's worded, a well-regulated militia necessary to the security of a free state. Right? In 1789, what was the United States seeking security from? Right? It wasn't seeking security from slaves. It wasn't seeking security necessarily from Great Britain or other foreign adversaries. It was seeking security from the indigenous people that it was seeking to remove because they regarded us as enemy combatants. They regarded us as foreign adversaries who were contrary to the goals of the settler project. Right? And even in the Declaration of Independence, one of the causes that our founding fathers gave for seceding from Great Britain was that they didn't feel that Great Britain had given them enough protection from the merciless Indian savages. And so, it's written through all of these founding documents that, one of the express military goals and one of the express strategies of establishing the United States as a world power and also as a global power or as a regional power was gaining these lands that were held by indigenous nations. And so it only stands to reason that the rest of the history would manifest the way that it did forward, I think, because indigenous people across the globe, but especially in the Western Hemisphere, are a colonized people. And so whenever you are a colonized people, your colonizer seeks to either erase or exterminate you or assimilate you into a non-actor, right? Somebody who doesn't threaten the status quo, somebody who doesn't threaten the system that they're trying to implement. And so, all of those things that I mentioned, cultural identity, language, spiritual identity, community, as well as acts of political and legal resistance are ways to push back against that and sort of decolonize is what the prevailing word in academia right now is.
Some said never, but they never done come. Yeah, and took our trust. It's been winning, but the lovers ain't done. Yeah, not on my watch. Took all my rights away. Telling me how to pray. Won't let us demonstrate. Wrong. thinking I don't belong. Hiding behind a gun, hoping we're gonna run. We are the lions, we are the chosen. You gotta know who we are, who we are. Yeah, if some set fire when the fire was ice. No, and so the light. Some may buy it, I'm not paying the price. No, not in this life. Living, we're growing with pride. All of the lions we strive. Working so hard to unite. United, we tired of lies, tired of lies. Whoa, whoa. We are the lions, we are the chosen. We gonna shine.